Okay, so we're going to quickly create some markup, which will basically demonstrate how you can integrate the checks into your design. And we're going to be doing an if statement here. We're going to be checking if an auth URL is available. Now, if an auth URL is available, and we'll be looking at this later, that basically means that the user isn't signed in and they need to click a link to be able to actually authenticate. So let's build the base for our markup, and this just shows how we're going to integrate things. So let's create our doc type, our HTML elements, our head and our body, and then we'll go and fill things in. So within the head, we want to set the character set, or the character encoding, to UTF-8. We want a title here. This will just be your website. And inside of the body, when we're basically going to have links, like I've just said. So these will look like something like this. So let's say P. Just create a paragraph for the sake of it. In fact, we don't really need to do this. And we're going to say sign in with Google. Now this could be absolutely anything you can click. This doesn't need to be a form button or any specific button. It can be an image. It can be whatever you want. But basically within here, what we're going to do is we're going to provide the auth URL that's generated via our Google Auth class. And we'll be looking at how we generate that later. But for now, let's say auth URL equals null. And we'll say change me later. We're going to change this later so we actually use, because at the moment obviously this is useless. Google will give us a specific authentication URL when we communicate with their API. So inside of here, what we want to do is we want to output auth URL like that. And we only want to show this link if the auth URL is available. So I'm going to create some PHP tags here, and I'm going to say if auth URL. Down here, I'm going to say else. Let's just indent this a little bit. And then down here, I'm going to do my end if. So what's going to happen now is inside, if we just indent this a little, inside of here, this is going to be you are logged in, and then we'll provide another anchor, and that will just go through to our logout page. Logout.php. We've already created this, but obviously at the moment nothing exists in there. So this is what will be shown otherwise, and let's get rid of this. Doesn't quite make sense. So okay, so if the auth URL is available, let's just change this to 1 because otherwise we won't see this. And this will output the auth URL. So if I refresh now, it says sign in with Google. Let's view the page source, or just inspect this actually, makes more sense. You will see that here we've got an href of 1. This will eventually be the auth URL. If the auth doesn't exist, basically this means that we're already logged in. So we'll change that later, but for now that's our markup and a little bit about how we are outputting the sign-in link or the fact that the user's logged in. But obviously we'll be looking at this in the next part.